The views, information, or opinions expressed in this episode are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, our funders, or any of the organizations affiliated with this project. Welcome to a Seeds of Wellbeing Experts in the Field podcast featuring Hawaii agriculture producers and affiliates working in their field of expertise to support agriculture in Hawaii, in the United States, and in some cases around the world. These podcasts are made possible by a grant from the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, also known as CTAHR, and the Seeds of Wellbeing or SO project, and is supported by a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Hawaii Department of Agriculture.
Having a conversation. The forms can seem overwhelming. We worked really hard to simplify those documents, make it as easy as possible. And, our office has a really strong commitment to the community and customer service. We're here, we're public servants. We want to have that conversation to help navigate anybody through this process. It is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for some of our staff even. So, we want that opportunity to help walk people through it.
In this episode, we speak with folks from the Hawaii County Department of Finance Property Tax Administration Office about recent changes to Hawaii County's property tax regulations and filing requirements that can allow agriculture producers to receive, or continue to receive, preferential property tax rates for their property on the Big Island of Hawaii. These changes have created quite a stir among agriculture producers, so we wanted to get more information and some clarifications about these changes.
I'll start with introductions, and I think, Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Lisa Mira. I'm your real property tax administrator for the County of Hawaii. We're under the Department of Finance, and we have offices located in Hilo and Kona.
And I'm Keita Joe, the Assistant Administrator for Real Property Tax.
Okay. Well, thanks to both of you for being on the program today. Give me a little background, or give us a little background on what happened and maybe a little history of how it used to be and what changed and why.
Okay, maybe I'll give us a start, and whatever I miss, Keita will pick up for me as we go through it. It was a very long process, so it didn't happen overnight. And it went through quite a bit of changes through the years. And I want to thank you first for even agreeing to meet with us and letting us be part of your podcast. This is our first podcast. Nobody usually invites property tax to do anything with them. But we do feel like it's a great opportunity and way to get out to the community. The main thing that happened with the changes that were approved in 2023 by the County Council was changing our agricultural programs under the Real Property Tax Division from 2 programs, and it went to 3 programs. But in doing that, the non-dedicated ag program is being sunsetted, so it's not everybody's just being kicked out, but they're trying to phase them into other programs, and that would require applications. A lot of the reason it started off needing a change was for a couple of reasons. The ag programs as it was originally set up was many years ago, and it didn't go through any major overhauls, and every program within real property tax should be looked at periodically to make sure it's still achieving the goals of the program. When it came to agriculture, there were 3 different groups. There was a task force at one time, a ad hoc committee, and then finally there was a review group, a working review group. And the working review group had wanted to break out and have ag committee take a look specifically at the agricultural program because it's such a huge program. The homeowners is the biggest program that we have with over 40,000 parcels, but the agricultural program had about 11,000 parcels in it. There are 2 parts to the program before the non-dedicated agricultural and then the dedicated. And majority of the parcels were in the non-dedicated program. The Ag Committee came back with a report to County Council and basically wanted more structure on the non-dedicated agricultural program, which included more inspections and just more guidance for the real property tax staff to know what they're supposed to be looking for. Some areas that weren't addressed in the past were areas like fallow. And so we would have some individuals or properties that would say, they're in fallow, 5 years later, they're still in fallow, 5 years later, still in fallow. And our office didn't have, and we still don't have, agricultural experts. Finding any agricultural expert to actually want to work in a tax office is very difficult. Most people that love working in agricultural, their goal isn't to be in an office or to be handing out taxes to farmers or ranchers. It is one of our least favorite parts as well. And so it became very difficult for us to understand what is the way the program should be. What does the county council and the public want to see for these, for a tax benefit on the program? With homeowners, it's very simple, very simple. The rules are laid out. That gets looked at all the time. Agriculture is one that everybody was afraid to. So I guess to wrap that up, that was a big part of what changed. So now we have 3 programs. The Community Food Sustainability, which is a 5-year program before needing a reapplication, the short term, which is a 3-year program, and the long term, which is a 10-year program. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah,
if I can just interrupt for 1 sec. Sorry. So 11,000 properties, or is that what I heard you say? About 11,000?
Yes.
Fall under this either dedicated or non-dedicated ag exemption?
No, that's all the agricultural programs.
Okay, so all the agricultural programs. So, but historically, it's been just the 2, the dedicated and non-dedicated. So that's 11,000 under that umbrella.
Yes.
Those 2, or those 2 under that umbrella, I guess, of agriculture. And so, but the majority you said were non-dedicated ag, or NDA, I guess, is the acronym we're using for those. Is that right?
Correct.
So what percentage would you say of the 11,000 are NDA? Do you have a sense?
It was about 9,000, 9,500, hovering around that.
Wow,
majority. Yeah, so significant.
Okay, and so the changes that you're talking about with the 3 new programs for NDA, is dedicated agriculture still a reality? Does that change at all, or is that staying the same? And we're just talking about the 9,000 or 9,500 that are NDA.
So for the most part, the 10-year dedication is remaining intact. That's what we call our long-term dedication program. So that's not changing very much. Some small, slight, subtle changes that people will see. Most people will be impacted from that sunsetting of the NDA program.
Okay, so in the dedicated ag, my memory of it, or from what I've been researching or reading, is it seems like the dedicated ag didn't require an annual reporting, and then NDA program did. Is that right?
For all intents and purposes, the NDA program was a program that didn't require reapplication, so it would roll over year to year. The big difference between those 2 programs was that the 10-year dedication, you were the expectation was that you would remain in agriculture use for the period of 10 years, where NDA, if things change down the road 2 years into an NDA program, you could leave that program without any type of tax penalty or implications.
Okay, so is dedicated ag now the 10-year program?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Great. So they all are thought of as NDA. Is that kind of, as I use these terms, I just want to make sure I get the terms correct. So
we kind of used to use apologies. Used to use the dedication and 10-year dedication. They're almost one and the same historically. So you'd have that dedicated program, which was a 10-year commitment, and then the non-dedicated, which was year to year. Okay.
And is it the right phrase for me to call them ag exemptions? Is that fair, or is there a different term I should be using for that?
I think from a technical perspective,
yeah. Please educate me.
It's a preferential assessment.
Okay.
So instead of looking at the market value of a property and exempting out a certain dollar figure, it's really reassessing the value of the property based on its agricultural use.
So preferential assessment for agricultural use. Is that That's the, okay, great.
But Jim, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know
As
what you're
in,
talking
yeah.
about, and the taxpayer will never correct anybody.
Yeah.
No, but I want to get it right. It's just like that, I want to get people's names right. I think I've already messed up Kata, or is it Kita? Kata?
It's okay.
Kata. I'm already messing up your names. I'm sure I'll mess up your titles because it's like one of the longest department
Title
names.
ever.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. We're used to all kinds of names.
Okay. So there were two programs, and I guess, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm hearing it is up until now, there were two programs. One was called dedicated ag, the other non-dedicated. And now they're going to be three programs. But
Mhm.
so long-term is considered a replacement for dedicated, the 10-year, and
Yeah.
then the other two are considered NDA, non-dedicated.
Nope.
Oh,
The
dang.
short-term I know you're close. You're
Okay.
close. Don't worry,
Right.
we had to do a chart for our staff as well, so
Yeah.
it's not just you. The short-term, they created a short-term dedicated program. It says dedicated, but it's not recorded at the Bureau of Conveyance, but you do reapply every 3 years.
Okay.
And that is honestly, value-wise, most similar to the non-dedicated agricultural program that
Okay.
is going away. And then
All
they
right.
created a whole new program called Community Food Sustainability.
Okay, yeah, that's a brand new one. Okay.
Brand new, yes.
All right. So actually, I wonder if it makes sense to bring up one of your charts that you sent over to me.
Okay.
Let me try to do that, and just maybe we could use that as you talk through the programs. Let's see if I can share a screen too when we do that. So bear with me one moment. We used to have dedicated and non-dedicated, right? NDA, and now we still have dedicated, a variation on it with some of the
Yep.
new stipulations, I guess. And then we have these other two. So these are the three programs now: the Community Food Sustainability, CFS, which is the new one, and then short-term dedicated, which is maybe closer to what the NDA used to be, or no? That's just
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Similar as far as what your new preferential value would be. So if you had 10 acres in pasture before, to have the same value for the 10 acres in non-dedicated, the short-term dedicated is the same value.
Okay. So maybe I'll just leave this on the screen. And I did, Kata, I did interrupt you if you wanted to say more before maybe before I cut you off. If there's stuff you wanted to add, why don't you? I let you back, and I'll try not to interrupt this time.
No, not at all. I think if you look at the history of our dedicated agricultural, I should say our agricultural programs, and agriculture on the Big Island, there is really a shift over time from monocrop to, different means of farming and agricultural practice. And so I think part of the change was also to open the door for our staff to approve things that weren't maybe necessarily historically seen as legitimate ag.
So what types of things do you think?
When you have like mixed use, diversified ag, agroforestry, things of that nature, where you see this shift. So our agricultural programs, when you look at the non-dedicated and dedicated programs, are really based off of, I'm only going to grow this single crop on my property, and that's all I'm doing. And that really doesn't represent agriculture as we see it now.
Well, not in Hawaii for sure, right? I mean, we're pretty
Yeah.
unique. So it sounds like some of the templates for agriculture and what that means from the mainland, for example, might have been brought over and maybe didn't apply. I think that happens a lot in Hawaii again. So it was an opportunity to kind of fix that. And I think, in Seeds of Wellbeing, we've done some data analysis and a lot of surveys, and I think our sense is that about 75% of all the farms on the islands are small, what are considered small farmers, so 10 acres or less. And I think each of those farmers, there's a strong homesteading kind of a philosophy behind them, and it is very much unlike, traditional row cropping on the mainland. So this sounds like it's just kind of catching up, if you will. Does that make that sound? I see you nodding your head, so that sounds good. So I think with the mindset of what can simplify this for people, what do they need to know, what's important? It sounds like everybody that's had any kind of ag preferential tax in their, on their property for years and now has to step up and do something if they want to continue to have that preferential tax rate. So I think that's the reality. And remind me, this is just the Big Island of Hawaii, just the county, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay, so do you think any of the other islands are going to follow suit, or do you have a sense of that? Or I don't know if you can tell, but I know the majority of ag producers are on the Big Island, but Oahu is certainly close behind. So do you think any of this might spill over to Oahu or other islands?
Well, Kauai County already did a major change on their ag program, and I believe you need to have a minimum of 5 acres. And if it's less than 5 acres, the entire property needs to be doing some type of active agriculture. And they're focused more on commercial agriculture and not, there's none of these 3 programs. It's a lot more simplified. City and County of Honolulu already goes to a percentage of value. So it's a little bit more clean, mainstream there. Nobody else is providing. When we went through all these changes with County Council also made changes that I think some feel are positive. A lot of concerned farmers and ranchers, and we definitely going to get into where we hear the concerns are. In this program, one of the things they changed that they felt like was a very big step forward is in the past, you had to choose. If you're going to get the lower agricultural land value, you don't get the low homeowner tax class and the 3% cap. You have to pick. And even for us, it was frustrating because it's almost like you're gambling. Which is going to go higher? Is our land value higher? Is the building value? Like which way is better to go? And that 3% cap is a huge savings. When all these changes went about, County Council also updated the homeowner tax class and said, well, if you're doing active agriculture, then you can get both. So that means you can get the lower agricultural land use and you can get the lower homeowner tax class if you're getting an exemption. And the key part here is not doing short-term vacation rental. Okay. And I know that's a whole nother series that we could probably do with another group, but that's how council has it set up right now.
Yep.
And they took it a step further and said, if you are not living on your property, so you don't have the homeowner, but you're renting it out to your farm workers, which the farm dwellings were supposed to be for, then you can actually get the affordable rental tax class. Because usually what we've seen is a lot of those rentals are very low. I mean, I was shocked at how low the rentals were to the farm workers, which was great to see. We never realized how well and how far a lot of these farm owners were going to take care of their workers.
Well, it's kind of critical, yeah. I mean,
that's huge.
That's what we found is as we talk to more egg producers on the island, labor is one of the biggest stressors and one of the hardest things to address. So you have to do what you can to keep good people.
Yeah, that's what they've all said. And it's worth it for them to let them live there for, I mean, almost nothing for a lot of these dwellings. And that was extremely shocking. We never knew that before because they never would have qualified. They never shared that data. And so it was a leap that County Council took. And I think that one was a really good move because they've seen their property taxes, they're coming down because of that. Now, again, if it's short-term rental, there's nothing for that on those properties. But for the affordable rental and where they're residing, it made a difference. I want to clarify, I'm going to turn that all over to Kata to go through the differences in these 3 programs as he cuts to the chase and I get a little long-winded. One of the other things we hear a lot is, it's affecting our zoning. This is not affecting agricultural zoning. Your property is still zoned agriculture. We got a lot of phone calls that got confused between the agricultural preferential benefit value, which is way less, versus the ag zoning. Your zoning is your zoning from the planning department. We're not changing that. How you use your property, whether you're going to grow something or not, is still up to the owner, farmer, rancher. To get the lower value due to an active ag use, which is way below market value for a majority of the island, And Kato will talk about the community food sustainability and how there's part of the island where maybe our ag value per acre is a little bit high compared to what their market values are. Obviously not along Hamakua or the west side, our values are quite high, but it does not affect your zoning. We're not trying to change any of the zoning. That's between you, planning department, and if you have CCNRs, completely separate from our office. We just look at zoning and what you're doing.
But it does sound like there's actually a benefit with these changes for homeowners exemptions, and you may be able to qualify for homeowners as well as I said exemption again, but I guess it's a preferential tax rate for a homeowner. Is that accurate as well? Is that what it's called for homeowners?
Yeah, when you apply for the homeowner program, it actually has two different sections to it, which is very different than most of the rest of the United States. There's the exemption portion, which will lower your taxable value. And then there is the tax class, which is your tax rate, which is the lowest tax rate, similar to affordable rental, and the 3% cap. So even though the market's going crazy high, it can only go up 3% each year. It's still going up, but it's not going up at the same pace as the market. And I think that's where we've seen the biggest inequity with farmers and ranchers where they live, that they were not protected by that 3% cap. So their building values were going crazy, even though their land value was staying the same and they lived there. So I believe that was a positive change. They don't actually need to apply for that. It was an automatic conversion. So letters went out to say that they're automatically going to get the lower tax rate.
Okay. And that's is that value, is that what shows up on that statement I get every year?
The assessment
At the
notice,
bottom.
yes, we just sent that.
Okay. Yep.
It'll show on the bottom your market value, your assessed value, and your taxable value.
Okay. So actually pay attention to all that when you get
Yes.
that. Just file it away, right?
Yeah, it's good. You want to make sure if you're doing agriculture, you're seeing a different value there. If you got a homeowner, that you're seeing your exemption there, and your taxable value is the big value you want to see. You take your taxable value times the tax rate, and that's your estimated taxes for the next year.
Okay. And that's when you get all the phone calls.
Yes, you get them both times.
Yeah.
It's all
You get them all the time. That's what you're there for, though, right?
yes, we're here for it.
Okay. Yeah, do you want to bring up the grid here that shows the three different categories, or would you rather? Yeah, let me do that again. I noticed there's been a lot of revisions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
One of which is, I think, the deadline for filing, I think, is been
Yes.
revised again, which I think will reduce stress for the entire agriculture community, at least the
Yes.
ones that email me. And so,
Yeah.
so but a lot of changes, and it seems like I'm kind of impressed with the amount of community meetings you've had about it all, and feedback, and making changes based on feedback that you get at community meetings. It seems like that's been happening more so than I would have ever expected with such changes to is it a law? No, it is.
Yeah.
It is
It's
to such
law.
laws. Yeah. So with changes to laws, I guess I was surprised to see so much of an interactive dialogue and so much that you're responding to from the community. So thank you for that. But yeah, this is the October 21st version. Do you think there'll be more changes to this there's still more changes coming? Are you still in conversations with folks?
I think it's pretty much landed where it's probably going to stay for a little bit as we roll this out.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has caused a lot of the confusion. But we went to great lengths to encourage participation, at least from the division and the public, to help facilitate a discussion on, what does agricultural mean? What does it look like? How can we develop these programs that meet, it might not meet everybody's needs, but as many people as we can get to. Because the intention is to maintain the Big Island's agricultural identity. It's a huge part of who we are, right?
Yeah.
Any change is hard change, and this was a big change. And sending out all the letters, it did cause quite a bit of panic and frustration. So part of us going out, we weren't the ones it's county council who does the change. Administration either signs off on those bills and it goes into law. But we've tried to work very hard with the council changes to make sure that everybody understands what this is about. It didn't help that it happened during an election year. And so a lot of information went out. I think there was a lot of anxiety. And so we've had quite a bit of meetings, and we're hoping to have more meetings with CTAHR to have ag workshops. And it would make us really happy to actually have more properties qualify for the agricultural program. We're not trying to, in our office, cut it back. We want to make sure the right properties are getting it. And we've had a lot of new parcels come into the program because they thought they were getting an agricultural value, that were doing active ag, and had no idea they needed to supply an application. And so we've seen lots of new parcels come into it already, which made us feel really good. I mean, I wish they were getting it this whole time, but at least they're getting on now.
Nice. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so walk us through the three new, or the three, well, I guess they're new as of a few months ago. Are they official? Because there's no new applications being accepted for the old program? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, so walk us through the three new programs.
Okay. So all the three programs really are built around having a continuous active agricultural use. And so just by virtue of having agricultural zoning would not enable an individual to enter into one of these programs. But we have the long-term dedication, which is a 10-year dedication. That's very much similar to the dedication that we've always had. It's a recorded dedication, meaning it shows up on title. And that's just to put prospective buyers on notice in the event that the property is looking to be sold or transferred, that there is an agricultural benefit being given to the property. And there is a potential for what we call a rollback. So the big thing with the 10-year dedication is if at any point in the 10 years, if an individual stops utilizing the property for that agricultural use, there is a provision for what we call rollback taxes. So going back in time and saying, what should you have paid had you not received this benefit? And so it can be significant. And so I think that's the beauty of having these different options for people, because entering into agriculture is a huge risk for a lot of people. You might be doing, pasture today. That model might not work for you longer term, or vice versa. So you might go into orchard or truck crops. But these different programs provide entry points depending on an individual's plan for their property.
Okay, so it sounds like with the 10-year, you could sign on thinking you're going to have pasture, right? You're going to raise cattle, and just as an example. And then if you get into it 3 or 5 years in and you say, oh, I want to do, row crops, or maybe part of it is, you realize after having the cattle there, maybe the soil's better and you want to do row crops. And so or maybe and all the other things that can happen in agriculture that cause you to need to change your strategy. The price of beef, right? That could be one. So at that point, could you then say, well, I'm going to now be short-term or community food sustainability? You could change to another program if that made sense.
Yeah, so if you're in the 10-year dedication and you decide that you want to change the type of agricultural use that you're doing on property, you would file a change of use with us so that you're locked in for that 10-year period under that long-term dedication, but you can change from one category to another. So to go from pasture to orchard, vice versa.
Okay, but can you do, because it looks like under there is intensive ag, orchard, diversified ag is part of it too. So it kind of covers most of the agriculture types. So you can shift and still be under the 10. I got it.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. And as far as minimum requirements, it looks like, is it a 1/4 acre is minimum?
Yes. So for the different agricultural categories, if you're in intensive ag, so truck crops, diversified ag, a 1/4 acre minimum size. For orchards, we're looking for a 1 acre minimum size. We have feed crops, fast rotation forestry, 2.5 acres, and then pasture and slow rotation forestry is 5 acres. With that said, there's an opportunity for individuals who do not meet that minimum size requirement to submit a farm plan. that helps to support going below those minimum size
Okay.
requirements.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's kind of interesting. It sounds like it's more generous, maybe, that is the word I would use than the the Kauai program I think you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems, and I guess I'm looking at fast rotation forestry versus slow rotation forestry. Is that defined by the applicant?
So that's yes, and we have different categories that we provide, how we generally define what fast rotation forestry looks like. Typically that's like your eucalyptus for maybe pulp production
Yeah.
or whatnot. Slow for rotation forestry would be your koa, your hardwoods that take.
Okay, could fast rotation be papaya since it's a fast grower and producer, or is that not what you're
Yeah, it would be under orchards.
Okay, all right, got it. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some
so-
guidelines that helps us too.
Okay, yeah, it's gonna make you being this flexible, I think is gonna make your jobs a lot harder too.
Yeah.
It has.
But I think it's a recognition that there's so much fluidity with agriculture. You know, even with pasture and stocking rates and whatnot, sometimes, you know, in a drought situation, you know, you need to reduce your herd size and whatnot. And so that's just the fluidity of ag in general. And so I think these programs try to recognize that, you know, that there's certain things that are beyond the farmer or rancher's control, you know, and still, you know, allow this benefit to
Okay.
be received.
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll down on the screen here, but I think because I think we're now moving to some of the other items you've been talking about.
So another component to the application that might be overwhelming for a lot of people is the $2,000 gross income on the Schedule F or G49. In absence of that, if the property is adhering to generally accepted standards and recognized practices, you can, in lieu of showing a Schedule F, having that $2,000 gross income, you can include it in your farm plan or discuss it in your farm plan. So the farm plan is almost like an opportunity to kind of have that discussion, right, with our office. You might not make $2,000 gross income. Maybe you're just starting off and you're actually operating at a loss at that point. So having that farm plan really helps us to better understand your farm and your agricultural plan, what that looks like.
Okay, so tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And were you holding up one of the documents, Lisa?
Yeah, it was the farm plan.
Okay, you have a template for that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's online. It's 3 pages.
Okay.
In the beginning, I believe a lot of people thought it was going to be this big 14-page document. It's 3 pages. You fill in the answers to make it easier. We're trying to make it easier on individuals to apply. We don't want it to be difficult, but we need just a little bit more information to help us, you know, with maybe what's fallow, maybe other parcels you rotate your cattle. So when the inspector goes out, they don't see cattle. It's okay because it's probably on one of these other many parcels that are out there.
All right. So don't just do a sketch, but tell the story. Got it. Don't do a framework. I tell the whole story. I got it. Yeah, I think, I mean, certainly I've filled out the forms in the past. I have a sense there's usually a diagram, you draw a picture of the layout and what you have where, and like if you have a homestead as part of it, you know, then carve that out and show where that is. And so, so I think that's a piece of it, but I don't think I've ever taken the time to tell the story, right? So it sounds like that's a critical piece right now.
And then the other component, I talked about the farm plan in lieu of having the $2,000 gross income. You know, the farm plan is an option for you if you don't meet the minimum size requirements, you know, having that discussion. But the farm plan is one of a couple, or I should say a few things. You do not need all of the above when we're talking about the minimum requirements. I think you're hovering over that right now. It's the farm plan or an organic certification or a conservation plan or USDA food safety certification or $10,000 in receipts within the last 2 years. or an agricultural conservation easement. One of the following is more than enough. We wanted to provide individuals that already went through this process, probably a much more stringent process in the case of going through the USDA. You know, that's the golden ticket right there. If you have an organic certification from the USDA, then the farm plan isn't necessary at that point.
Yeah, or even the food safety certification,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think
Yes.
is maybe less rigorous, but also important to food production. So yeah,
Yeah.
and that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think that caused a lot of concern amongst many people was I have to do all of these things. It was seen, you know, all or nothing, but it really is give us one of the following.
Okay. And then any other notes on that item that you want to share?
Other than, you know, I did talk about the rollback.
Yep.
There are situations where we would not roll back an individual. So in the, you know, in the case of a farmer who was unable to care for the farm, maybe passed away, there would be no penalty for not meeting the 10-year. The other component too, and we've seen this quite a bit, unfortunately, recently, with a lot of crop damage, even natural disasters. We had, you know, the eruption back in 2018 that damaged a lot of papaya orchards. There isn't a penalty in those situations. You know, there very much is a recognition that there are going to be things that are outside of the control of the farmer rancher.
Okay, and just send yourself a reminder in 9 years to update your application or redo your application.
So what we'll actually do is we'll notify all the owners that have a dedication that's set to expire. We'll notify them in June, the June prior to the expiration. We'll notify them that it's time to refile because 10 years is a long time. I'm not going to remember myself.
It looked like at one point there was a 20-year program, but that maybe had taken off the
Yes.
plate. Yeah.
Yes.
I know in some cases 20 years is preferred in some cases, but it sounds like even if you have a 20-year lease, you'd still need to do the 10-year with this.
Yes.
And I did see with leases, right? I saw a note there about if you have a lease and that it has to be either 5 years or more or less left on it to make the application. But what if it's an open-ended lease, like you don't have an end date on it? Is that fine too, or do you need to try to put limits on that for the sake of these documents?
Yeah, so an open-ended lease, if it's not like a month to month where the lease term is, you know, minutes, ran its course and then now it's month to month. I think if it was open-ended, that would be something that would be allowed. These leases for the dedications need to be recorded though. That's one of the components that differentiates the 10-year dedication from the other programs is the requirement that the lease be recorded.
Okay. Have they been recorded previously, or this is the first time they're being recorded?
They always have had that requirement. Yeah, and it's really tied to the rollback provision in the 10-year dedication. So there's some major financial implications, and it's just making sure that everything's lined up, everybody's okay.
Okay. And so I heard you mention that there's going to be folks coming out to check, and is that during the initial application process, as well as if there's a 10-year lease, there might be folks coming out regularly just to check in?
So generally speaking, we'll come out at the inception of that dedication period to go through the approval process. Outside of that, if there's maybe a transfer or a lease expires or sell the property, there might be additional inspections. But generally speaking, we're not going to be going out to the properties on an annual basis, semi-annual basis.
Okay. You're not sending drones like some of the folks in the neighborhood suggested?
No. Drones. So we have drones, but we have access to imagery that, you know, may help fill in the blanks. Usually we'll come out though if there is any improvements to the property, whether unpermitted or not, because we tax for unpermitted. Staff will try to come out And then the last time we usually come out is if there's a complaint. So a lot of times neighbors will say, hey, they're getting this huge break and I pay way more in taxes and they're not doing anything. And then we
Right.
just come out to look at the property.
But I guess again, in the rumor mill, since I took us there, it's I did hear that a lot of this was implemented to weed out, and I'm quoting from an article I read, which I'll put a link to in the show notes. But it said it's mostly to weed out gentleman farmers, so that and to quote, it would no longer be enough to plant a few papayas and bananas for your breakfast and lime trees for your cocktails, or put a couple of sheep or goats in your pasture. Was it really to try to crack down on the folks that are getting away with something and shouldn't?
I think the intent of it was really taking a look at ag all over again and really defining what ag means and going beyond personal use and consumption.
Yeah.
It always was that. I think that was always the intent of agriculture and these programs and how to support was to go beyond, go out into the community, provide for the community, the greater community at large.
Yeah, and making adjustments that better reflect the true agriculture of Hawaii. I
Yeah,
think is the way
correct.
you put it earlier. Okay, we'll go with that. Forget the rumor mills. Do you want to talk to the other two programs,
Yeah, absolutely.
CFS? Yeah, CFS and short term.
Yeah, so as Lisa mentioned, the short-term dedication for most individuals that are currently in our NDA program, that's going to be the natural progression is to go into a 3-year dedication. And the reason being is it's a 3-year commitment. For the short-term dedicated program, I talked about on the long-term dedicated how there's a rollback, right? So if you stop using it for ag, there's an implication of rollbacks. For the short-term dedication, if the property is sold or conveyed, there is no rollback provision. So it works for the most part in tandem with how the NDA program exists today.
Okay.
As far
And I
as,
think,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, as far as minimum size, it mirrors the dedicated, and as far as income, it mirrors the 10-year dedication. And again, there's that farm plan that helps you overcome those particular requirements.
Yep. And you don't have the conservation easement, but that's for the 10-year, and it's not recorded.
Correct.
So there's that if that matters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is difference obviously is the term, right? So every 3 years, an individual would need to reapply in order to continue the benefit.
Yep. And it sounds like we'll get reminders about that too
Yes.
from your office. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Yes, you will.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I did want to talk about one thing, and it really speaks to community involvement and the division and council listening to the community and some of their concerns. With a 3-year dedicated program, at one point, legislation was out there that restricted renewal to 3 times. So you could only be in this program for a maximum length of 9 years, and then you would have to choose to go to the 10-year or the community food sustainability. And I think there was a lot of feedback from the community, and council listened. We listened. And so you saw this additional legislation come in to take that out. So right now you can renew every 3 years indefinitely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's another positive.
Yeah.
Another win for the ag community.
Yeah.
And CFS, tell us about that one.
CFS is really about that entry point, and about facilitating, maybe you're not making $2,000 annual income, but you're donating to a 501c3. You might grow a lot of, papaya. Maybe you have a large number of trees, so much so that you're sharing with your neighbors and you're sharing with nonprofits. This is a real entry point for individuals who kind of want to see, some type of tax benefit, albeit it's not going to be as significant as the 3-year or the 10-year. But it allows for an entry point, trial basis, if you want to think about it that way. But The big difference with this particular program is every 5 years, you would need to recertify. And at that point, you would need to provide documentation that you are making donations of $1,000 or more to a nonprofit
Okay,
501c.
1,000 per year.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah, so that was like you have to give it to a 501c3, so you have that, or you just have to document it that it's going to someone. Does it have to be a nonprofit, like a tax exempt organization? It does. Okay.
correct. And you would have to provide a receipt of
Yep.
that exchange. The other thing that I want to also point out with the community food sustainability program is it includes pasturing for food production. So it's a little bit different from the other two programs, the 3-year and the 10-year dedication. But if you're utilizing pasture, for example, goat milk, that type of agricultural practice, then you would be able to utilize this particular program for pasture use. Otherwise, there is the opportunity to only do the 3 and the 10-year dedication.
Not just lawnmowers, is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a lot of details, though. So I think
A lot. And we haven't even talked about benefits. That's just the requirements.
I know. I could move to benefits, but I actually kind of want to go to the FAQ that you
Okay.
sent me today, because I think that's kind of handy. And cuts to the chase, I think, for a lot of things for people. This is a recent document. This came out in October as well.
Yes.
Yeah, this seemed really handy too. And again, the links will be in the show notes and is on your website. But this seemed like it was like I tried to Google some of this stuff, and none of it was as straightforward as your FAQ, I thought. So I like this document a lot. And I think folks might appreciate seeing this, because originally I thought everything had to be in by September 2025. And I thought that was even on a document I saw as recently as my last property tax assessment. But then it sounds like that's changed. And so we have another year, which is great.
Allows the division to help facilitate individuals filing their applications. The feedback was like 1 year is too short of a time period, especially if you have thousands and thousands of individuals that are going to need to consider the changes and apply for the different programs. And so we wanted a little bit more time to work with the community to help.
Yeah. Are you finding that you're doing a lot of that, helping folks one-on-one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jim, that was an extension made by county council. So in their first code amendment, it was September 1st, 25, they needed to reapply, but they changed it to September 1st, 2026. So a lot of these are code driven, and we're just down low on the totem pole following what the codes are. And some were done by the finance director where she had authorization to make some changes to lessen what felt like pretty severe or harsh for the public based on their testimonies that they gave. So testimonies are always great to get involved in with the county government.
Okay. Yeah. And we've actually had some podcasts, a few with legislators and representatives, and it's become clear that getting involved does make a difference. So I think we've been talking about that in another podcast as well, but let's say that again. I don't think you can say that enough, is my sense. But one thing that I noticed is that the apps received by September 1st, you get your benefits through June 30th. But if you don't send it in by then, but you get it through June 30th, 2029. But if you don't submit anything, then you're only until July 1st, 2027, which I thought was kind of important. So it's like an extra incentive to get your application in, people, right? Especially if you have the beneficial tax rate now, get an application in, right? Is I think what I'm going to tell anybody that'll listen that I've been talking to about it. I will mention that, a couple of months ago, I was getting together after I got that letter, my annual letter, and a bunch of us were talking about it again. And so I asked, has anybody talked to the office? Anybody gone through this process? What are you finding as you talk to the county about it? And everybody's like, I'm not going to do it first. I'm waiting for other people to do it. It was like everybody said that I talked to. It's like I was hoping they would do it so I would know what to do, but I guess
Yeah.
a lot of folks are in that boat. But it sounds like a lot of people are calling your office. Do they come in? Do they do it on the phone? What's the process?
Both. They'll call on the phone maybe to get a feeler and not give us a TMK number or name, just to see what's out there. And then after they get comfortable, usually they'll ask to schedule a meeting, maybe with the appraiser. It's really helpful, even when we do broad workshops or presentations, and we've done between 25 and 30 already since July of last year.
No.
A lot of people want to speak specifically on their farm or ranch or situation with their family, and they don't want everybody else to hear it. So
Yeah.
it's usually very handy for our appraiser to meet you out there, for you to meet with us. We'll meet you somewhere. And I think case by case is really the best way to go about it. Every situation can be very different.
I'm definitely getting that feeling the more we talk. It's best to work with you, like, and you to get to know me and my situation,
Yeah,
which is everybody's is unique, right?
it is.
And
It
so I
is.
think if you don't, you might be missing out on a key component.
Right.
Yeah, this is a lot of the details, a lot of the frequently asked questions I assume that you get are on this sheet. Is that a fair
Yeah.
statement? So yeah, we'll share that out as well. There's some, well, I'm sharing the screen. There's couple other documents you shared that I'll make available. This one, Rules 30, I wanted to ask you about this, but this one is pretty good. Let's just bring this, I'll bring this
That
up.
is good. That is a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one, but red doesn't mean, like, red just means changes.
Yes.
Italics is in red, right? Because I saw it as, because there was another document I looked at that was, everything was strike through and things were changed in red. But this one, pay attention to the red stuff. That's the stuff that changed, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
these are the agricultural assessment values. So again, we talked about how this is a preferential assessment. So instead of being taxed at market value, you'd be assessed at these various values depending on the use of the property and the program that an individual was entering into. These would be the rates per acre.
So Jim,
And
if I can, so let's say you have an acre and you could sell it on the market for 180,000 for that acre, vacant land. And we have that as your assessment. But if you are in a short-term dedicated intensive agriculture, so maybe you're doing sweet potatoes, and then on that whole acre, and then your value would be $4,000 for that acre instead of the $180,000.
Okay.
That's how the value per acre works. And I think there was confusion again, that this was the taxes per acre, not the value per acre.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that because I was seeing it that way.
Yeah.
And initially.
Yeah. It's easy to. There's so much information.
There is, and it changes depending on the program, right?
Correct.
And the type of agriculture and
Yes.
yeah, so it's complex.
It
I
is.
think, so I think but that kind of cuts to the chase because the tax rate doesn't change for your property. It's just what the valuation is that changes. So
For the most part.
Yeah, I was like, well, council has until June 20 of each year to change the tax rates.
Yeah.
It doesn't change much, especially in the agricultural or the homeowner.
Yeah.
That doesn't change very much at all.
But I guess, yeah, I was to finish my thought. I guess I wasn't being clear either about what was going through my head. It's like what did you say, $180,000 valued acre versus a $4,000 valued acre. The multiplier that's going to be used for the tax that I pay is going to stay the same.
Correct.
It's just, right.
Sorry.
That's right. No, that's what, because that's where my brain was going. It's like if you didn't apply for it, or you didn't even know, like in the case you talked about, you didn't even know you could apply for it, then you're paying the taxable rate on 180,000 instead of 4,000 in that example, right? So that's significant. Okay. Another incentive to get your phones ringing. Phone calls best, or emails, or website? Is there a website form to set up a way to contact you, or what's the best way to?
Well, so I'm good with emails. A lot of people like to have something in writing back from us.
Yeah.
So emails are great, but if they want to be anonymous for the first 1, 2, 3 phone calls, which I find very common. There's a lot of concern that, oh, if you call the office, they're going to get your name and number and they're going to know who you are. And we're not that deep of thinkers.
You're going to send drones.
Yeah, we're not. We can't use drones. We're not allowed to use drones. We'll clear that up now. That was another rumor.
For the
they're
record.
sending drones. It's not us. We don't even own a drone.
For the record, people, no drones.
For the record.
Yeah, so this is again a great sheet that has lots of details on it that I'll share, that you shared with me. But having spent a lot of time researching that prior to our call today, or our conversation today, I feel like I'd still want to meet with you one-on-one, because it's my mind is a little numb going through all this. But the one other document that you did share with me, speaking of mind numbing, rules 31, 31A, 31B, 34. So this one, I mean, I was nodding off, just getting through the definitions.
Us too.
Yeah, us too. We're gonna have to. We have a great corporation counsel, which is our attorney that works on these with the directors, and I'm gonna have to chalk up all of the rules in the county are your legalese.
Wow.
And it gets into the nitty gritty. So if the council is handling the county code, which is the law, the finance director writes these, which is basically procedures our office has to follow. And in order for anything to change in the rules, which is this, it has to go out to the public. So between the procedures and how difficult it is inside the government, it's government, so it's not super straightforward. It's a snoozer, but it's the legal document. And some people in the public love this part of it. Like, they like to get into that nitty gritty. We're more of a FAQ people that will take that and summarize.
Okay. But do you both know all the details that are in here?
Yeah. We've read through that quite a bit.
Right.
So we could go through them if there's any portion you want to look at. What the rules are supposed to do is take the code, and it can't conflict with the code. It can't totally overrule it, but it's supposed to be more of a guiding document to maybe help soften some areas for our office. Okay, so when would I, as just kind of standard homeowner, ag producer, ever want to look at this? If I feel, tell me in what situation I might want to reference rules 31 through 34A.
I think if you wanted more clarity that was beyond what, and if you're looking at the legislation, right, the county code, if you wanted a little bit more detail, that's the document that you would refer to. Obviously, the FAQ is probably the most simple. Try to be as easy to understand as possible, but our guiding document is going to be the rules and regulations. Okay, so maybe after we meet and talk in more detail, that might be something I'd want to dig into. But the other thing I wanted to ask is, under the values document, it had categories. Where are these categories pulled from? Like 8H and 8I and P and Q and 4B. Where would I find those referenced? Yeah, so those numbers are actually the coding that we use when we're entering it in. Internal. Our management system. Yeah, so we're sharing an internal document with everybody, being as transparent as possible. Okay, great. I thought it might tie back to one of those rule documents. So, okay, cool. Yeah. All right, I'm going to get those off the screen. I do want to mention something about the rules that we appreciated. I think more than anything was you had talked earlier about receiving a letter in the mail. And that letter was saying, hey, there's some ag changes that are coming. Here's a public hearing. We're going to talk about the rules and regs that we had drafted thus far. These are our guiding principles. It's our guiding document. The public came out in droves. It was really good to see that participation. Yes. And from that, we actually made some changes to the rules and regulations based on the feedback that we received. So it was really good to see government in action, that process in action. And it was important for the division to really let everybody know, all the stakeholders know, hey, this is coming. Here's an opportunity to speak. You may not have been able to go to the council meeting or provide testimony at that point in time, but here's where it starts to get a little bit more serious.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, good stuff. And is that why there's the different versions? It's like,
Yes.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
started as 31 and then became 31A and B. And is that the iterations that happened as a result of those conversations?
No, I think there was the non-dedicated ag might have been the 31 or 30,
Okay.
and then it turned into these programs. But definitely the dates you see on a lot of our documents changed
Yep.
because of the changes in there. Another big change that came from the public that the director took into account as well as council is the minimum sizes. So there was quite a bit that came back
Okay.
from that.
So these links that you sent me that I'm going to post for the podcast notes, will those documents update, or will you get different links if those documents change? Are the links still going to be good as you make changes? They'll just refresh with the newest? Okay.
Correct.
Great, perfect. So how many more staff have you hired in order to handle all this?
So how our office works and it's not going to be for all the government, just for our office. I mean, we do collect the taxes, so we're extremely mindful about where it's spent. In fact, we don't like to see where it all goes. But we did not hire any new staff for this agricultural program rollout. For us, we usually implement and we see what's really needed. Maybe something else is going away. Maybe something else is changing to digital. And so as of yet, there's been no new staff for the purpose of agriculture. There has been some positions that were in the pipeline from quite a while ago that might finally happen. We're not sure, but it's not specific to agriculture.
Okay. So
Yeah.
does that mean that if I call and set up a one-on-one appointment, it'll be with AI or Chat GPT?
No,
not at
we
all.
don't have that. We don't even have I think we're one of the last holdouts. So we don't even have that auto answering service where, enter the last name of the person you want to call. Me and Kata, we're not young enough to appreciate those types of things. We never remember names. So you will get a live person as long as there's somebody in the office able to pick up the phone. It will be an appraiser, one of us, or the appraisal supervisor that would actually meet with you. We don't have any AI or Chat GPT yet.
Okay. Now, would it make sense to meet at the property, or can you handle everything from your office or on the phone, or is there any need to do that in person?
I think in office or on the phone is
Okay.
probably the best place initially, and then as you proceed with the process, the application is really where upon receiving the application and verifying the application for approval, we would go out and inspect the property at that point. But a lot of the discussion can happen.
Okay.
Phone, email, in office.
Yeah, it sounds like an email you're fine with. So I think after it sounds like the initial outreach is the phone, and probably using the phone number on the FAQ is the place to start and share that. And then does that seem right? And start there, and then
Yeah, I don't see a phone number. I have one on our other. We have a phone number. They absolutely could call to get directly to the appraisal line. And I think that would be a better number.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you, yeah, I thought, yeah, you're right. It just has the link to the website. I thought I saw a phone number on there.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, do you want to just share the phone number to call?
Yeah, 96, if it's in Hilo, 808-961-8354.
Okay. And if it's outside of Hilo or
in West Hawaii, you can call 808-323-4881.
Okay. Does that all go to the Hilo office, or you have?
No, we have an office in Kelowna at the West Hawaii Civic Center. But if one line's busy, call the other one. They can help you anywhere.
Okay, because everybody knows it's the same both sides of the island. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Well, that's good to know too.
Yeah.
I did see some notice, yeah. So we talked a little bit about fast and slow rotation forestry, good versus average versus poor pasture. Do you define that? Is there kind of a place where that's defined that makes it easier, or you want to give us a sense of that?
Yeah, so that metric came along with the old historical program. There was a recommendation by one of the groups that was convened to go to one rate to simplify that. That was a recommendation that wasn't taken up by council this go around. We're hoping maybe in the next go around it might be something considered. But it was really tied to stocking rates and per acre and land's ability to support a certain number of head of cattle.
Yeah, I mean, we are a ranching island, right? So I guess I think that makes sense. Is the nuances of ranching are much better understood and are more important here than most places.
We thank Lisa and Kata for sharing more details about these Hawaii County changes and for also sharing the direct contact information, which is listed in the show notes, to help make the process easier for Hawaii Island agriculture producers. We hope you find this helpful. Mahalo.
So I guess thoughts from either of you, if you just want to share, what are ways to help reduce people's stress related to all this that you would suggest?
I think if you're doing active agriculture and you're concerned about anything you may have heard, call our office, talk to us. You're welcome to come down, but just give us a call or shoot us an email and we can talk about what you have going on in your property. I believe there's a lot more people who have come in and afterwards said, oh, that's not what I heard. And so it's not really that big of a deal. But until you know it, I get the anxiety it has caused a lot, and I'm not discounting that at all. But if you can give us an opportunity to work with you, that would be great. And Jim, if we end up getting an ag workshop going with CTAHR, we'd like to be able to reach back out to you. And maybe when this podcast goes online, you can air it with it. And hopefully people that have more questions can come and see us. And maybe after they see us on your podcast, they won't think we're such bad people.
Especially now that you dispelled the whole drone thing, especially.
Yeah, I know.
I know, so fun.
Again, I'll reiterate what I think became clear to me early on in our conversation is these changes are really just to reflect changes in agriculture that are more appropriate to the island of Hawaii as well as Hawaii in general. So I think that's kind of key. It's not trying to get anybody, it's trying to be a better fit for what's really happening out there. So I think that's maybe a key point for folks too, which I'm going to try to spread the word about in any ways that I can as well. So it sounds like I think I'm going to suggest anyone that needs to do this, call your office first and get details and get help with how to fill out the paperwork, and to certainly do it. Maybe not wait until August of 2026.
Oh, we'd appreciate that, don't we?
But to do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But knowing that, no matter what the outcome, they will still have if they have ag beneficial rates now, that those will continue through June 2029. So I think that's kind of comforting to a lot of people as well. And so I'll share that. But I think that's the suggestion I'm going to make is call, have a one-on-one, see what makes sense for your situation, and then fill out the paperwork and get that turned in, because I imagine you have a lot of applications to go through.
We do.
11,000 11,000 maybe.
Oh, it's over 1,000, yeah, already, but not 11,000 yet.
No.
I think a lot of people, once that extension came, they were relieved to see it.
Yeah.
But it's also good because more people are coming into the program, so I think that's a great thing.
No. Well, thank you both for taking the time to talk through all this and educate me. And I think it's I found it really beneficial to understand a lot more details. Again, I still feel a little confused about some of the pieces and how that might apply to my situation, but I feel confident that once I reach out and talk to you folks about that situation, that we'll get it squared away. And it sounds like I'll be in the same or maybe even a better situation than I have been for all the years I've had the benefit of that preferential rate. So thank you for the preferential rate also. I think you're the folks I can thank for that. It's been great.
Council, that one we got to give to council.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you again. Yeah. Mahalo and thanks again.
All right.
Thank you so
Aloha.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
The intention of these podcast series is to create a safe space for respectful and inclusive dialogue with people from across a broad and diverse spectrum involved in growing and making accessible the food we share together. A diversity of voices, perspectives, and experiences can serve to deepen mutual understanding, to spark creative problem solving, and provide insight into the complexities of our agricultural system. If you, our listeners, have experiences with Hawaii agriculture ecosystem, from indigenous methods, permaculture, smallholder farmers, to large, including multinational agricultural industrial companies, and everywhere in between, and you would like to share your story, please contact us. We welcome your voices and perspectives.